So the thing with Billy Joel is that, is that, all right, I grew up with a very, I guess I would say, an eclectic musical upbringing, right? Mm-hmm. On my grandfather's side, I would get things like, 50s and 60s jazz. I also, through him, via my uncle, actually, because he had made him a mixtape, got some Tom Waits. Mm-hmm. But then also way back to folk music like the Weavers and like really early Pete Seeger stuff. And, my grandfather was one of those people who thought Dylan sold out when he went electric. But also my grandfather had been born in 1928. So,
He did. So he actually knows what electricity is. Back in my day, Jared, if you wanted warmth, you had to set something on fire. Now you kids just have to flip a switch.
But like seriously though, his things were, you can eat all you want. Mm-hmm. Wait, was it take all you want but eat all you take?
Yeah,
he had that rule, and then he had the. I would have great drives with him through Los Angeles because his grandfather had owned a butcher shop I think it was Fairfax or something like that. If any family member is listening knows better, they'll correct me. But owned a butcher shop down when like LA was still a lot of dirt. Mm-hmm. And
like LA Confidential days?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, so again, we're talking like into the 30s and 40s. Mm-hmm. And he was like the last of the, I guess, dying out sort of Mad Men type advertising guys. He was he had been a vice president at an advertising firm that he had been at for some time when I was born. So I got lots of great stories from him, and also apropos of The Good Place, he would, I would get my philosophy discussions from either my mom, who actually went to school for philosophy, or my grandfather, who had a much more science fiction-y background in it. Mm-hmm. And we would talk about the, for all we know, he in front of my grandmother was Jewish, but was definitely one of those agnostic types that I got that from. And he would say that there's, who's to say that we're not living inside like the thumbnail of some larger being, or that we're one blink away from being wiped out of existence or something like that.
The aliens aren't playing marbles with us.
Exactly.
Like at the end of Men in Black.
Exactly, which I believe is also something stolen from Douglas Adams. Mm-hmm. They talk about playing billiards with planets in Hitchhiker's Guide. But so I would get that stuff from him, and then my grandmother had a bunch of cheesy, like light rock. She liked Carly Simon and like Carla Bonoff and Barbra Streisand and all of these, like, she had the Kenny Rogers albums.
Oh, that's that's my dad.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then my mom had a lot of stuff from, that's where I first heard my first Talking Heads albums, which I think was songs about buildings and food. And she had the first Crowded House album, and then she also had The Stranger.
Nice.
And so, as for some reason, as a kid, I glommed on to Billy Joel. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it was because it was another Jew who had done something in music, and I don't know what it was. But as a kid, for some reason, I that was my first musical obsession, was the work of as you said, Mr. William Martin Joel. And I would watch like the old like VH1 history of music video shows, and wait around for the Billy Joel segment, and catch like the crazy videos from Nylon Curtain, like Pressure, which was just like a crazy synth song, and that
video is wackadoo.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. And it's, if I recall, because that's sort of how I kind of got into Billy Joel, was like through that song and that video, because I used to play it all the time. But
yeah,
I think the same director who did that video did pretty much every Duran Duran video from
that would make sense.
A2, A3. Makes sense. Russell Mulcahy, I think is his name. And he went in to direct The Highlander and The Shadow.
He did The Shadow? He's responsible for The Shadow? He's responsible
for The Shadow.
Wow.
Yeah, you should IMDb him sometime. He's got... he's very much of a... He's like a Ridley Scott, but with... not so much discerning taste. However, if you've seen The Counselor and some other latter Ridley Scott movies, you would see that Mr. Scott isn't doing so high.
He also, had developed some questionable taste.
Yeah, for every Alien and Blade Runner the man has made, there is always someone to watch over me.
Sure,
and and a counselor. Oh God.
But so my fandom of Billy Joel reached peak around second grade, I want to say. And then it was already uncool at that stage of the 80s to like Billy Joel, outside of like We Didn't Start the Fire, which that brought his popularity back for a little bit. But, which I'm not going to get into that song. But...
it's like his best work song.
Well, because if you break it down, and he's broken it down himself, he's like, it's just two notes over and over.
Yeah. They wanted a single.
Yeah, I don't know.
I had my fucking Wagnalls.
And so there was that. But then getting into like sixth grade, I remember that was like my first friend who was into Pearl Jam, who was like saying that Jeremy was, it was like his anthem, and I wasn't ready for
Jeremy. Should be no one's anthem. It's a good song,
yeah,
but it shouldn't be anyone's anthem.
No, it was that kid's anthem, and and if you knew that kid, you would see why it was his anthem. I'm
so sorry.
Yeah, I felt bad for that kid.
So I have two questions for you at this point. One is, has Mr. Joel ever used his Jewish heritage as part of his story? Because I don't think he ever has.
I don't think so. Mention it. He mentions it kind of casually. And, he talks about being raised Jewish and that sort of thing. But I don't think it figures prominently into his life. Much in the way of Mr. Robert Zimmerman, who becoming Bob Dylan did not discuss much of his Jewish heritage until basically after he did his born again Christian phase, and then suddenly he was wearing yarmulkes and going to synagogues and being Jewish again. I don't know. Maybe it's just something that comes back, and as you evolve into old age as a Jew, you can't help but being an old Jew. I was born an old Jew, but.
Is it like AARP when you reach the age of 48, your yarmulke comes in the mail?
So can I tell you something?
Oh no!
I got an email from something called Silver Singles. I don't know what the fuck list I got on or what, but it just showed up. Granted, it's my live mailbox, so all sorts of crap shows up in there, and yes. I still have a live mailbox, but also do other things through Gmail. So I'm with it. I'm with the times ish.
We've had this discussion last week.
Yeah. So, but I was like, and it came today. It like kicked me when I'm down. I'm like, single, 36, in this, nice but tiny 1-bedroom apartment. I've got, I'm living with a cat, a temperamental cat. And I've got, I'm not feeling good about myself. And then I get this email from Silver Singles. I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
It makes me feel bad that I kind of made a couple of jokes at your expense before I arrived here.
That's all right.
Though I do have to say that bringing over a bottle of Lonely Boy margaritas does kind of fit in with the theme.
It does, just a little bit, yeah. Did you? Well, I'm going to finish my Billy Joel story first, and then
I still have one more question. Once you're done.
No. So it was a time when the Billy Joel, the love for his music had to go underground for a while, and it found, it had to go underground, and it's not even like I got with it at that point. I was still evolving into liking Dylan and Leonard Cohen and Bruce Springsteen, and then Elvis Costello, and then I got into the Clash and some punk and some new wave, but I was still about 15 years behind current music, and it's not until. Oh, and I got into one John Cougar Mellencamp at that point as well.
John Cougar?
JC. The best JC in my opinion. But so a lot of that. But again, also, is there a better I point to Human Wheels as a great example of why Mr. Mellencamp is a great song.
Oh, I mean, yes, you could, easily pigeonhole him as the Midwest Springsteen.
Sure.
Also, side note, I stayed in a cabin near Bloomington, Indiana, which is supposedly by his house.
It's one of his houses. Home of it's Camp Mellencamp.
Yes. Well, Camp Mellencamp is not pink. It does not have a pink house.
But they're for you and me.
I know. But I like Johnny Cougar. Is it Dance Naked, the one with
the one that came out? Well, so the response to the lack of commercial success of the, I think, solid, like possibly best album of his career, Human Wheels.
Okay.
Mercury was like, there's, you're not commercially viable anymore. You're not having hit singles. And so he turned around and gave them Dance Naked, like within 6 months. And then his version of Wild Night was a big hit.
Yeah. So I was going to say, is it Dance Naked or was it, I'm trying to figure out which one was Human Wheels was the one with the Van Morrison song?
No, Dance Naked is the one with the Van Morrison song.
So, and Human Wheels, I know that one too.
Yeah. Human Wheels spin round and round. Yeah.
And which one has I Saw You First?
Oh, that's another one I really like a lot, which is Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot.
I like that one a lot. The whole album is actually really solid, and the video features one Mr. All Right, Matthew McConaughey.
So back to my second Billy Joel question.
Sure.
And this is where, you have two choices: The Stranger or 52nd Street.
Oh boy. Now, okay, I think that The Stranger is a damn near perfect album. There are two songs on the second side that I could totally do without. And also, I think Just the Way You Are is probably the cheesiest song ever written in the history of pop music.
And I'm pretty sure Mr. Joel would agree with you there.
He agrees, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, when you look at the title song, when you look at Vienna, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant, Only the Good Die Young, Anthony's song, and, I mean, those are like fucking perfect songs. It's hard to argue with that, but I think 52nd Street is actually a more consistent album.
Yeah, because I think I like The Stranger more, just simply because it felt. I feel like it's kind of like his River, it swings a little more for the fences.
Yes.